Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, and this is my daily ramble. I hope you're all well. As always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We are chasing that 10K before Christmas, and we're closing down on it. Drop a like on the video as well, because that does also really help us. And again, I'm going to remind you, we've got our Black Friday offer from our sponsor, the Kent and Sussex Tea and Coffee Company. David, lifelong West Ham fan, great guy. The website is amazing. Go and check it. The link is in the description. Whether it's for sort of domestic or even work purposes, you know, they do commercial orders as well. Up until the 5th of December, you get 25% off if you use Claret25, and it is fantastic stuff. Trust me. Okay, what we're going to talk about? Well, as we know, we're in an international break. I'm not too displeased with that, to be quite honest. It gives me 2 weeks off from moaning about games. I'm sure I'll find something else to moan about, though. You know, it'd be fine. But, you know, I suppose looking back at things now, where we're sitting, it could have gone a different way. You know, we could have lost that game quite conceivably. We was lucky. We did kind of scrape it. We deserved to win it in the end because we created a lot of chances, but we were lucky. You know, Forest also had a lot of chances. If we'd have lost that, it would have been 16th, but we haven't. We've won it. We've come through it like David Moyes always does when he's got his important games that he's got to win. He never loses them, does he? Ever. You know, and he can when he needs to, he can throw on players and play attacking football as well, can't he? He can go for it, but he's got to be fucking desperate. And we are sitting 9th in the Premier League. We're sitting top of our Europa League group, and we're in the EFL Cup as well, the quarter-final against Liverpool. Now, I don't really know what to expect when we return to football, I've got to be honest, because, look, we know everyone's spoken about this now. I put a tweet out yesterday or the day before talking about the structure of West Ham and how either in December, depending on how, January, depending on how David Moyes handles this ridiculous fixture pile-up that we've got coming up. I'm going to touch on that soon. Or whether he stays till the end of the season. West Ham are not going to be looking to replace David Moyes. We're not. We're not replacing David Moyes. David Moyes is a football manager, okay? A football manager, an old-fashioned guy that comes into a club and he manages all aspects of the club. You know, he handles transfers, he handles philosophy, he handles recruitment of coaching staff, he sets the drills, he puts the fucking cones out, he feeds balls in a one-on-one. That's a typical football manager. They've got full responsibility with everything, you know. You know, when you think about it, how can a manager be responsible really for transfers and stuff like that for a transfer window when the team should be preparing in pre-season? You know, we should have someone focused on getting the team ready. This is why the model has changed, because what you end up with, the old style football manager, yes, there are some that are great and that have been great, but they're a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's what they are. They're managers. They can do a lot of things. And that's why sometimes when you bring in a new manager or with someone who's not got much experience into one of those environments, they may struggle. They may struggle because there's a lot more to the job than just coaching. But what we're building at West Ham now, with Tim Stein, with Mark Noble, is a backroom staff and a mechanism similar to that what we're seeing at Brentford and similar to that what we're seeing at Brighton as well. Whereby you build a machine, a very efficient machine at the back. You know, the director of football sets a philosophy. The sporting director, in our case, handles that pathway for youth players. So there's a connection between the academy and the first team. The director of football goes out there and handles recruitment as well. And also puts in place a coaching staff to help realise the vision of the club, because the vision and the philosophy of the first team has to be the same all the way, filtering all the way down through to, you know, the under 12s. It's all got to be the same. Spoken to John about this before, and it's like that at Leyton Orient. It's like that at all academies. They all coach in the same way. That's how it should be, and that's what we'll have. So we'll have this efficient machine, and then basically all we need when we go out, we're not going to be replacing David Moyes. All you need with this type of setup is a coach. That's it, a specialist, not a jack of all trades. An absolute specialist. And that is why sometimes you're seeing more and more young people given opportunities now, because all you do is you find someone with a bright future who's really ambitious, with loads of ideas, and you just plug them in to this system and you just let them manage the team and let them manage games. And that's all they've got to focus on. They've got nothing else to focus on. And that's why you're seeing more and more younger managers cutting their teeth at clubs. You know, it's a trend throughout Europe, and it's creeping into the Premier League now. And managers like David Moyes is not a specialist. He's not. Very few of these managers are. They're not. He might be good at certain aspects that other managers, like for instance, like Will Steele's been spoken about. You know, he's another one. He's not really a manager. He works as part of a mechanism at a club. You know, he coaches that team. He picks the team, gets them ready for the weekend. That's kind of what he does. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're all going to be quite surprised. I know a lot of us are thinking of the big names. You're thinking of, like me, I was thinking, oh, Pochettino, this, that, the other. Well, no, because Pochettino, in a way, he's a bit of an old-style manager. He wants full control. These types of manager are going to kind of get phased out in the end because that's not going to be their mandate. Their mandate is going to be literally performance on the pitch, and that's why you're going to see a turnover. You're going to see more of a turnover of managers, and you have done just recently in the Premier League. And I think we will do at West Ham. We'll put a new guy in. He'll either do amazingly well and he'll get poached, and then we'll go and get the next one, or he won't do so well and we'll just replace him, plug another one in, job done. You know, you haven't got to worry. You haven't got to worry and have this trepidation. Oh, we're going to lose the manager. What we're going to do next? It don't really matter. They're just a coach. That's all they are. You know. What the actual team and the club and the environment, everything's there. It's all in the background. That all stays the same. So I think it's going to be an absolute breath of fresh air once this project does actually get going. When that happens, I don't know. Now, somebody made a very, very good point in relation to why we could be retaining David Moyes up until the end of the season, even if it goes bad. And that could be kind of at the request of Tim Steidten as well. I think if we're not looking like we're going to get relegated, which we're not going to get relegated, then when you look at the team that's been built for quite a vast amount of money, there's still gaps all over the place. We're still very weak at centre-back. We're weak at right-back. We've got no striker. There's problems in that squad that maybe wouldn't suit a new manager coming into this club right now at this point and trying to get them to play fast-flowing, progressive football. I don't really necessarily think that we might have the right personnel to do it now. I mean, maybe we have. Maybe I'm thinking Zuma. But if you look at Aguero and Mavropanos, they're custom made for that type of football. There's just a couple of pieces. I think Emerson's great. Soufal would not fit. Souček wouldn't fit. But then again, it doesn't really matter about Souček because we've got other options there. But we do desperately need a striker because I think, as we've seen when we've tried to play Bowen down the middle, every team does need a focal point. I think everybody has suffered by Antonio not being in that team. And that's not because Antonio's great, but for instance, Kudus and Bowen look better when he's on the pitch because what he does is he occupies defenders. He gives players that are deep something to aim at, you know, and then the guys around him can flourish. So even when Antonio's not necessarily doing anything on the pitch or playing particularly well, it kind of benefits the team. And I think we've seen that because in the two stints that Bowen has played now as a centre forward, he hasn't really looked great. I know he scored the goal from the corner, but I mean, come on. He's not a backs to the wall player. I think if you play Jarrod Bowen down the middle, you're going to give yourself half a Jarrod Bowen. He's amazing out wide. Whereas Kudus, who we're playing out wide at the moment, is not amazing out wide in this current system. He's a central player. So there's so many things that a real coach probably could do with this team now. So I'm disagreeing with myself already. And that's why I think it's just important. And it is catch-22 because the worry that we've all got, I think most people have got, and I'm sure they've got it in the club as well, is that it's one thing saying, look, just hang on. You know, 26 games, this is to all the players, you know, there's going to be change, but so much can go wrong in that period. Players can get really frustrated, you know, careers are short. You don't really want to sacrifice a year of your career for a club that are showing, it's almost like a lack of ambition. We've got a transfer window coming up. If we've got gaps that need filling, then hopefully we can fill them in that window if we're going to be ambitious. But that could be why that Tim Steidten isn't, why we haven't replaced David Moyes yet. It could be because Tim Steidten wants to get all of the pieces in place first. He wants to get all the backroom staff there. He wants to get the playing staff ready because he knows how, Tim Steidten will know how he wants his team to play. Just go and have a look at Leverkusen. I mean, we saw them pre-season. They're absolutely blitzing the Bundesliga at the moment. They're They've pissed their Europa League group. They've got 12 points. They're at the top. They've won every game. They're through in their domestic cups. You know, they've been battering teams in their domestic cups. And they're top of the Bundesliga as well. You know, really young team. Average age of about 23, 24 years old throughout Leverkusen for a squad of 27 as well, which is just fucking mental. That is crazy young. So, yeah, they're set up. So Tim left them in a really, really strong position. So we are in capable hands now. You know, I've said it before with Tim Steiten, which I'm just getting a bit impatient because I feel like there's stuff that we could do this year, but there's nothing we can do. You know, I think David Moyes is always going to win these last gasp games. He just is. He's, you know, it's gonna happen all season. If that's the rule, 5 games or 6 games, he will always win that 5th or 6th game. It's a fucking stupid rule anyway, isn't it? But I don't necessarily think that is it. I think it could just be that, you know, Tim's only been here a few months, don't forget. What he won't want is to sack David Moyes and then not be ready for when the new manager comes in and risk having that manager fail. He's going to want to set up in such a way, whereas the new guy comes in and he's got the best possible chance of pushing on and succeeding. And also as well, can you imagine the fallout in the fan base if, heaven forbid, we sacked David Moyes in December, and then we got knocked out in like the quarterfinal or the semi-final of the Europa League? It would just be, oh, could you imagine if we'd have kept David Moyes? Because David Moyes equals trophies now. You know, he does. So there is that as well. And we know that David Sullivan is conscious of what the media say, and you constantly got fucking Martin O'Neill and silly bollocks coming out saying we should be signing him up. What's the problem? They don't watch us every week. They don't. So I don't, you know, they watch highlights and they look at it from a high level. You know, we're not glory hunters. We're not saying we want to change our manager because we think that we should be in the top 4 or pushing for the title. We're not Arsenal fans. No. We kind of accept that we're a mid to top half team. I think we accept that, most of us. So why have we got to do that and be bored to tears while we're kind of just existing, you know? Let's just be a little bit more entertaining. Let's go for it. Let's build something. Let's get some kids in. Let's do something at West Ham that we can all get behind. You know, and then hopefully some success might grow off the back of that. You don't know. But West Ham, we're not a glory hunting club. We have got some glory hunting fans now, that winning is all that matters. But there is a massive core of West Ham fans that appreciate so much more. There is, and there always will be, because that's what West Ham are all about. So yeah, moving on to December. I haven't got the list in front of me, but if you have a look, starting with Crystal Palace on the 3rd of December, all the way through to Arsenal on Boxing Day, we've got 8 games. 8 games in something like a 25-day period with a 3 to 4 game gap in between. And there's just ridiculous games there, honestly. You know, there really, really is. If you look at the list of games, like I say, I haven't got it, but you've got even the Europa League games. We've got 1 Europa League game in there because TSC is at the end of November. So we've got Freiburg in there as well, which is a must-win game. It's going to be. If Freiburg beat Olympiacos and we beat TSC, we've got to go all out to beat Freiburg so that we top the group and avoid a playoff against a Champions League team that are dropping down. We don't want to do that. So he's got to go all out in that game as well. But it's a really, really tough run. It's a really tough run. And it could be, if it doesn't do well in December, that could be when they change, because then all of a sudden there is a transfer window. If Tim does feel like he's got gaps that need filling for whatever manager he's got coming in next, he can go out and he can do it. He can do something about it. So, as well as sort of shipping players out. So, yeah, it could be very, very interesting coming up. Like I say, I mean, we all saw the story with Will Still. I do think there's something in that. I don't think he's definitely nailed on for the job. I think Will Still is clearly interested. You know, I mean, Rem or Reams, however you say their name, they're mandated him to stop talking about the West Ham job. They got pissed off with him over it. They said this last year, and then he's piped up again this season, just last week. And if that weren't enough, he then appears at the London Stadium, and this is against the wishes of his club. They're fed up seeing the connection of Will Still and West Ham. They don't like it. So he obviously doesn't care. He thinks he must think he's got a chance of landing this job. And as Russ Budden said, he was in the press box. He wasn't in the crowd. And then afterwards, he was going into the director's lounge. So you can make of that what you will. But like I say, I don't think he's nailed on to get it. I think there'll be a list. There'll be a list of managers. You know, he could be a hangover from pre-Steidten. It might be someone that Sullivan's asked Steidten to talk to. But I think Steidten's going to have his own ideas. I've still got my heart set on Xabi Alonso. But when you do look at what that man is doing for Leverkusen at the moment, I think his stock is probably so high now. I do think that we would be able to go out and get him, but not if we're competing with the likes of Real Madrid. I mean, that's a problem. I think it does all pivot. He won't leave there mid-season because he's doing so well. But I think if Leverkusen go and they win that league, then his stock will just go through the roof. He'll end up at a Real Madrid or a Liverpool or wherever. But if he doesn't, and I suspect that he won't because they are a young team, you know, and I think that they will struggle throughout the season. They've got Europe as well. Bayern Munich always win it, you know. It is quite a competitive league. So I do think they'll fall off towards the end of the season. They're only 11 games into their season as well. So things do change. And I think that's the point where I think that we might be able to get him. I think if it starts to go a bit wobbly, you know, people will stop talking about him quite so much and we can go and grab him. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm going to be back later on this week, myself and Mickey, and we're going to do a two-man show. What I might do a bit of a boozecast type one where I'll get you to send in some voice notes for us to discuss and have a little bit of a giggle about. And yeah, that's it from me. Very, very messy one. I am sorry. Kind of having to... it's a bit of a struggle in the old international breaks, do you know what I mean? But anyway, we'll carry on. I'll speak to you again soon. Come on, you words.